everyone, it's Storytime with Jocelyn. Today, we're going to read another book by Madonna. And today's book is called Mr. Peabody's Apples. And no, we haven't read this one yet either. And this will finish off the month of January. And we've got some great books lined up for February and for Valentine's Day. So I hope you'll join us next month for Storytime with Jocelyn again. So today, let's get us started with the second of 5 books for children, even grown-ups ones, like me. And it's by Madonna. So let us start. And goodness, the illustrations in these books are beautiful. And of course, the art is by Loren Long. And they've got a picture of Mr. Peabody and somebody that I guess we'll meet named Billy Little. I'm excited to find out what Mr. Peabody's Apples is all about. Jocelyn, you ready? Huh, you ready? You got a little eyelash. She's ready. So welcome to Hattville. This is giving me a little bit of a League of Their Own vibes. Speaking of Madonna. Ask your parents. Yep, we got some baseball going on. I'm excited. I like baseball. All right. In the town of Hattville, which wasn't a very big town, Mr. Peabody was congratulating his little league team on a great game. They were not won. They had not won, but no one really cared because they'd had such a good time playing. Mr. Peabody was a history teacher at the local elementary school, and in the summertime, he dedicated every Saturday to organizing baseball games with other schools. Billy Little, who wasn't a very big boy, was one of Mr. Peabody's students. He loved baseball more than anything, and he thought Mr. Peabody was the greatest. After each game, he would always stay to help pick up all the bats and all the balls. And when they were finished, Mr. Peabody would smile and say, "Thanks, Billy. Good job. I'll see you next Saturday." Here is a picture of Mr. Peabody congratulating his little league team on a great game. Then he would start his walk home along the main street of Hattville, which wasn't a very big street, waving hello to everyone he knew, and everyone would wave hello back. Along the way, he always passed Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market. Here, Mr. Peabody would stop and admire Mr. Funkadeli's fresh apples. He would pick out the shiniest apple, drop it in his bag, and continue on his way. Across the street, Tommy Tittlebottom watched with curiosity as Mr. Peabody walked away with the apple. "That's strange," Tommy said to himself. "Mr. Peabody didn't pay anyone for that apple." Tommy got on his skateboard and rushed to tell his friends. Here is where Mr. Peabody picks the shiniest apple. The following Saturday, Mr. Peabody's team played another game, and they lost, as usual. But no one seemed to care because they had such a good time playing. Billy picked up the balls and bats, and Mr. Peabody set off on his walk home. He waved to everyone he knew, and they waved back. Once again, he stopped outside Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market, picked up the shiniest apple, dropped it in his bag, and continued on his way. Across the street, Jocelyn, Tommy Tittlebottom and his friends watched Mr. Peabody, and they were amazed at what they saw. Mr. Peabody had not paid for his apple. They couldn't wait to tell all of their friends, who told their parents, who told their neighbors, who told their friends in the town of Hatfield, which wasn't a very big town. Here is where Tommy and his friends are amazed at what they see. The Saturday after that, Mr. Peabody was standing all alone on the baseball field, wondering where everybody was. Then he saw Billy walking toward him with a sad look on his face. "Hello, Billy. I'm glad you're here, but where is the rest of the team?" asked Mr. Peabody. Billy remained silent. "What is it, Billy?" he asked again. Billy didn't look up. "Everybody thinks you're a thief," he said to the ground. Mr. Peabody looked confused. He took off his hat and scratched his head. "Who says I am a thief, Billy? And what did I steal?" he asked. "Tommy Tittlebottom and his friends say they saw you take an apple from Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market twice, and they said you didn't pay for them," answered Billy. "Ah," said Mr. Peabody, putting his hat back on his head. "Let's go and talk to Mr. Funkadeli about it, shall we?" And this is where Mr. Peabody wonders where everybody is. Everybody thinks he's a thief. Right, Jocelyn? What do you think? I think something's going on. Let's find out. They walked down the main street, which wasn't a very big street. And Mr. Peabody waved to all the people he knew. And some of them did not wave back, and some pretended they did not even see him. They finally arrived at Mr. Funkadeli's fruit market. Out popped Mr. Funkadeli, who said, "Hey, what are you doing here, Mr. Peabody? Why aren't you at the game?" "There wasn't a game today," said Mr. Peabody, "and I was wondering if I could take my apple earlier than usual." "Sure, why not?" replied Mr. Funkadeli. "You pay for them every Saturday morning when you pick up your milk. You can take them when you like. You want that big shiny one, Mr. Peabody?" Mr. Peabody took his apple, smiled, and offered it to Billy. "I would like to take the apple, Mr. Peabody, but I have to go and find Tommy and explain everything," said Billy. "When you find him, ask him to come over to my house. I would like to speak to him too," replied Mr. Peabody. This is Mr. Peabody offering Billy the apple. All right, Jocelyn. A little while later, Billy found Tommy and told him what had happened with the apples. He told Tommy that Mr. Peabody wanted to speak to him right away. So off Tommy ran, and when he arrived, he rang the doorbell. And Mr. Peabody came to the door. They looked at each other for a while. "Oh, dear, Mr. Peabody," said Tommy on the doorstep. "I didn't understand. I should have said what I said, but it looked like you hadn't paid for the apples." Mr. Peabody's eyebrows went up a little, and he felt a warm breeze blow across his face. "It doesn't matter what it looked like. What matters is the truth." Tommy looked down at his shoes and said, "I am so sorry. What can I do to make things better now?" Mr. Peabody took a deep breath and looked up at a small cloud that was in the sky and said, "I'll tell you what, Tommy. Meet me at the baseball diamond in 1 hour and bring a pillow stuffed with feathers." "Okay," said Tommy, who then ran off to his house to get a pillow. And this is where Tommy rings Mr. Peabody's doorbell. What do you think, Jocelyn? An hour later, Tommy met Mr. Peabody on the pitcher's mound. "Hello, Tommy," said Mr. Peabody. "Follow me and bring your pillow." Tommy followed Mr. Peabody to the top of the bleachers, wondering what this was all about. "It's a windy day, isn't it?" asked Mr. Peabody. When they reached the top, Tommy nodded his head in agreement. "Here is a pair of scissors. Now cut the pillow in half and shake the feathers out." Tommy looked confused but did it anyway. He thought it was a small price to pay to gain Mr. Peabody's forgiveness. The wind carried the thousand of feathers far and wide. And this is where Tommy meets Mr. Peabody on the pitcher's mound. And the wind carries thousands of feathers far and wide. Tommy looked relieved and said, "Is that all I have to do to make things better?" "There is one more thing," said Mr. Peabody. "Now you must go and pick up all the feathers." Tommy frowned. "I don't think it's possible to pick up all the feathers," Tommy replied. "It would be just as impossible to undo the damage that you have done by spreading the rumor that I am a thief," said Mr. Peabody. "Each feather represents a person in Hatville." This is each feather representing that person. Wow. There was a long pause as Tommy began to understand what Mr. Peabody was saying. Finally, he said, "I guess I have a lot of work ahead of me." Mr. Peabody smiled and said, "Indeed you do. Next time, don't be so quick to judge a person, and remember the power of your words." That is so true. Then he handed Tommy the shiny red apple and made his way home. Mr. Peabody makes his way home. And that is the end. Next time you see someone doing something, make sure you know exactly what that person is doing before you spread any rumors. Because rumors are not always the truth, and rumors hurt people. Beautiful story of Mr. Peabody's Apples by Madonna. I hope y'all enjoyed that. And we will see you next month in February for a new story where we're going to be reading another Little Bear story from the Little Bear collection. If you remember, last year we read Little Bear. We'll be reading another one called Little Bear's Visit. So I hope you will join us for that. Actually, I think we're reading Little Bear's Friend. We'll read Little Bear's Visit another time. Yes, we are reading Little Bear's Friend. So we will see you next week. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.